Peace, family. It's Bakari Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a black empowerment initiative where we believe you could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on back. I'm back. The title of this video is What the HE Double Hockey Sticks is Going On. Haven't been here for a while. It's been over a month since my last video. I posted my last video, but it's been a reason for that. It isn't because I've been slacking in these YouTube streets. As many of you may know, I'm pursuing my PhD at The Ohio State University, and for the past month, I was doing my written comprehensive exam. So as you can imagine, it's a very arduous and tedious task. So I wanted to make sure I gave all of my undivided attention to handling that business before I got back to being in these YouTube streets. But as I stated before, the title of this video is What in the HE Double Hockey Sticks is Going On. I'm gonna say HE Double Hockey Sticks. I don't know if YouTube will allow me to use the actual term, but also my daughter would prefer that I say HE Double Hockey Sticks rather than the actual word. But want to start off by first and foremost just acknowledging that today is Nigeria's Independence Day. 61 years old. As we know, Nigeria is the most populous African nation in the world, and about 15% of all black people in the world, because you know we number of 1 billion plus, are Nigerians. So I want to make sure we give a special salute and shout out to the land that Nnamdi Azikiwe built when he was putting in work way back in the day when he collaborated with Kwame Nkrumah to create the Pan-African organ, the West African pilot, right? When they were speaking against the vicissitudes of colonialism and advocating for the African independence movement that gave us, of course, a free and redeemed Africa, at least on paper, but we want a free and redeemed Africa, of course, in terms of being able to control what the land and the wealth of the nation. So I want to put that out there, make sure that we always show love to our brothers and sisters, no matter, irrespective of where they are in the world. Second, as you all know, there's been a lot of talk about Haitian immigration, right? And as we saw, unfortunately, our brothers and sisters who were looking to cross the Rio Grande, they were treated in a manner that was reminiscent of antebellum slave catching, right? We had Border Patrol agents on horseback, hitting our brothers and sisters with whips. And maybe people stated, hey, this is the Biden administration doing this, not the Trump administration. I always tell people that when you talk about Democratic or Republican, one bites you with a smile, the other bites you with a growl, but at the end of the day, you're still being bit. And now we can understand why there was a foundational movement. There was a grassroots movement leading up to the 2020 presidential election in which people stated what? We want tangibles. We don't want to feel good. We got to get Trump out of office because we know that Trump was not the face of racism, right? We know racism was a well-oiled machine that had been churning along for centuries before Trump even got into the Oval Office or even was born, for that matter. Not to make excuses for or be a Trump apologist, but we just got to keep it 100 and call a buck, call a spade. But what we're seeing here, and Biden and his administration have been very quiet on the treatment of our brothers and sisters from Haiti, right? And I also think it's very important that we discuss this situation in terms of Haitian immigration. We know that unfortunately, the Haitian president was assassinated a couple months ago, and the country, unfortunately, is in dire straits, right? You might even use the term that it's a failed state. And for many of you who haven't studied political science, a failed state is a nation in which the government does not have a monopoly on the use of force to create compliance under the law. Unfortunately, that seems to be what is taking place now from certain reports. I've even got some brothers and sisters from Haiti who are here with me that I've been able to, glean information from. So it's a very unfortunate situation. But as we know, historically, our Haitian brothers and sisters were very courageous in the course the Haitian Revolution that took place from 1791 to 1804 and lasted roughly 13 years. And we know that the success of the Haitian Revolution forced Napoleon, who lost his holdings in the Caribbean, to sell the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the United States as a result of the courageous, efficacious, physical fighting that they did under the leadership of Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and of course, Boukman Dada. I also think it's important that after the Haitian Revolution, there was rumblings in the United States. They were aware of what was taking place. The United States even sent emissaries to try to do business, right? But as a result, at the end of the day, they felt that having a free black republic, a free black nation state, was doing business then was problematic for a number of reasons. Of course, one, which is anti-black racism, but also that having a black nation state on equal standing with white nations would what create a groundswell of uprising in terms of other black people throughout the world who are being enslaved or dealing with maybe pre-colonialism, right, proto-colonialism in Africa, to where they would say, we don't just want to be free, because we have history throughout the world of rising up and fighting back, right, slave revolts, but that what we would want equal standing, we would want our own nation. So as a result, there was a trade embargo that was put in place, and of course, we even know the history of discriminatory policies towards Haitians and immigrating, in terms of not being able to come when Cubans were fleeing in the 90s under Castro's regime or government or administration, right? And even the same was taking place when I think Aristide was removed from office and they were sent back. So we know that historically that's been an issue. But also, we know that there's been a couple, especially in the African American community, a couple groups, FBA, Foundation of Black Americans, ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves, that have sought to paint Haitian Americans as a monolithic group, right? We see them making comments about Candace Owens and her Caribbean heritage, or even Roland Martin, who, of course, these are individuals I'm not a fan of, and his Haitian background as roly-poly, and these are the reasons why they're buck broken, as they say. This is the reason why, they're capping or caping for white mommy and daddy. And I don't think that their national or ethnic background has anything to do with it, right? These are individuals just like you have African Americans who unfortunately align with the power structure, and as a result, they want to get some butter biscuits as a result. I think what's most important is that we as African Americans have always pushed back against being painted as a monolithic group, right? We know that we understand that historically, if one black person commits a crime, they try to say they're all criminals. Malcolm X talked about this in the 60s. This is how they were able to, justify police brutality, right? Because the whole black community is a powder keg that's about to explode just because we're savage beasts who can't control ourselves. We know that's not true, but this is some of the narrative. So I think it's a bit disingenuous for us to then use the same type of classification or characterization of another group of black people, simply of different national origin, and say they're all the same, and so on and so forth. I think that's extremely problematic. I also think we have to also realize that in the early 19th century, when our ancestors, African Americans, FBA, ADOS, whatever you want to call yourself, were fighting against the vicissitudes of chattel enslavement and second-class citizenship, we immigrated from the United States to Haiti, the only black nation state in the world at the time, and they welcomed us with open arms. Right? And so the reality situation is that America has had a drastic shift in its immigration policy since the 60s, when there was they made sure only 1,000 to 2,000 people of non-white origin were able to immigrate. Now they basically open up the floodgates. So the reality situation is, are all black people going to get along? Absolutely not. Are we always going to be able to coalesce? Absolutely not. Are we always going to be able to work together? Absolutely not, right? I'm a pragmatist, right? I'm not someone who simply just I'm not just blindly optimistic. But what I do know is, if I would want anyone immigrating to the United States, I would want it to be black people. This is a reality. And part of that is due to my Pan-Africanist ethos, but a part of it is due to what? If there's any group of people who are more likely to work and coalesce to build power and restore ourselves to our traditional greatness, it would be other black people, right? And so we have to understand what President Kwame Nkrumah taught us, right? The first president of Ghana, he was a Pan-Africanist. He was at the 1945 Pan-Africanist Conference in Manchester, England, where they stated where we have to destroy racism, white supremacy, and most importantly, colonialism, even if at the end of the day, we destroy ourselves, right? And when they went out there and they put in work. But Kwame Nkrumah, who of course was a student of Marcus Garvey, and stated that the most important book he ever read was The Philosopher's Opinion of Marcus Garvey, stated what? That if we are simply dogmatically nationalistic and not Pan-African in our origin, not Pan-African in terms of the way we see these issues, we'll simply be played against each other like pawns on a chessboard. And unfortunately, I believe that this is what is taking place right now. So I think it's very important that we do everything that we can in the way that we can to restore ourselves to our traditional greatness as black people, not simply representative of our national origin. I'm going to say this one more time. I believe it is of the utmost importance that we seek to restore ourselves to our traditional greatness based on our race. Because the reality situation is, under the system of racism and white supremacy, we're all one Negro. This is a reality. And the tactics that they use is simply to play us against each other. Because I'll tell you this, when white folk from Norway, Denmark, Sweden come over here, they realize what's going on, the racial hierarchy, they get it together quick, fast, in a hurry. And they coalesce. We have to do the same thing. We have to get away from our petty differences. This makes me think of a book by C. Wright Mills. He was a sociologist from Texas. He actually was called the Angry Texan. Can you believe that? And he wrote a book called The Power Elite. And he talks about how the power elite, we're talking about politicians, we're talking about the military industrial complex contractors, and of course Wall Street, big business, all decided to say that what? We could all get what we want, and we get it much quicker if we work together. Black people, we have to have that mindset as well. Last but not least, we also know that Haiti, unfortunately, has not been free of the tentacles of U.S. imperialism and jingoism. For example, we know the Marines invaded Haiti in 1915. And as a result, their actions restructured the Haitian economy to benefit what? Wall Street, not the nation state of Haiti and her people, right? We also know that unfortunately, due to American, once again, imperialism and jingoism, specifically the Banana Wars, the entire Caribbean, for the most part, South America, has been under the heel of American gunboat diplomacy, right? Because, of course, America's the only superpower in the Western world. So we have to really put these things in a broader, greater context. As I stated, I've been gone for a while, so I came back with what the hell is going on, what the HE hockey sticks is going on, because what I'm seeing is people really promoting talking points, but not digging deep inside about what is actually taking place, what's transpiring, and how can we as a black people as a whole help. Because the reality of the situation is, when we were under the heel of oppression, which we still are, but of chattel and slave and second-class citizenship, and we can make an argument there that we still are second-class citizens, and that we are denizens and not actually citizens, because we don't actually have the full protection of the law. Right? That's a conversation we can have for another day. But as a result, they accepted us. They opened arms and accepted us. We know this even took place in terms of immigration schemes back to Liberia and Ethiopia and other places, right? In terms of African Americans who were seeking to flee, of course, what was taking place here in America. So I think it's very important that when we talk about the issue in Haiti, that one, we highlight the hypocrisy of the Biden government. I would argue that no one should vote for the Biden administration. No one should be voting for Kamala Harris as president coming up in 2024, because the issues that are specifically dealing with black people, they are eerily silent. Any other issue, they're out there, they're vocal, they're just shooting from the mountaintop, right? But when it comes to issues that are facing black people at home or even abroad, we don't hear anything. Number two, I think it's very important that we understand that we have to coalesce, we have to work together. And historically, that's something that other black people and other nations have done for us when we were seeking a reprieve from, of course, chattel slave and second-class citizenship. So, once again, I'm out, but I want you to make sure that you subscribe, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. Until next time. Peace.